the age-old saying in the industry, it's all based on relationships. Yeah. Now I'm calling BS on that because it's not, because the modern way of engineering sales is about getting clear, laser focused clarity on the problem that you solve, combining that with credibility chips where you've done it before. So it's repeat selling. It's not an R&D project. You can show that you've done it multiple times for reputable businesses. Then add on top of that relevancy and an urgency from a timeline perspective, i.e. a regulation change, i.e. a new development project. And then put on top of that a system or a set of processes to do sales. You don't need a black book.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes. And welcome to the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined again by Mark Rathore. So I say again, these podcasts will actually go out back to back because we started talking about sales and engineering, and Mark shared some cracking stuff around absorption latency and engineering superego, which if you haven't heard those, I strongly advise you go and listen to them. But Mark, welcome back.
Thanks. Great to be back, Fred.
I'm looking forward to what you're going to talk about, because I think I literally had to stop you. I thought, oh, I don't want to, but I want to make sure we get the best of all these issues, because there's a couple of more things that we need to talk about. People work in this area particularly, and I don't know if we're going to come across as sounding a bit harsh, a bit overly critical.
Yeah,
And if we do, I mean, it's because we care, isn't it? It's because we do care for the people doing this job, because they're doing great stuff.
absolutely.
We want them to do it better, basically. So
Absolutely. We care deeply about these people, and like I used to be one of these people. That's why I believe I'm qualified to talk about it. But yeah, I think maybe on the last episode it maybe came across that we were talking a little bit sort of harshly and a little bit too direct about those people. But ironically, the minds of these engineers and these high performance, high technical knowledge people, they're incredible, really. So they're very resilient. They can demonstrate massive amounts of consistency. They very rarely get overwhelmed by massive amounts of information and data. That's why, as you rightly said, we care about them. We want them to be able to apply that greatness when it comes to being able to sell, market, and have conversations about the problems that they solve. That's really what it boils down to.
yeah, I suppose it's not even that we're being cruel to be kind. It's just we're being direct because they can deal with it, and they're selling good stuff. I mean, I was thinking after the last episode where there's so many people sell stuff that I reckon people don't need.
Yeah.
So how many CRMs do we need in the world? And I was getting all about that. Whereas you look at what a lot of engineering companies are producing and problems they're solving,
Yeah.
we absolutely need this stuff. And if we can help people sell that better, it's got to be good. It's got to be a good thing.
Absolutely. All you need to do is look at the transportation sector, aerospace, marine, automotive. Like, look at the leaps forward in technology that are happening, like even within a 6 or 12 month period, are just astonishing. Take the EV sector in automotive as an example. Like the stuff coming out of it's incredible, really. Yeah.
I'm doing stuff in energy at the moment. Hydrogen and all this kind of renewables. And it's so interesting. It's like, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
We want people to be able to, I don't know, communicate about that, sell that better, because it makes a difference. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're bang on. I mean, the products are genuinely contributing to the advancement of the human race on this planet. Like that might sound a bit out there, but that's the truth, really, isn't it? And I think we're very fortunate where we're both located here, in the Midlands in the UK. Like we're a hub and renowned globally, like in the automotive space for, you know, internal combustion, electrified powertrain development. Like we're leaders in this area, so we're quite blessed really that we're, you know, if you draw a 50 or 70 mile radius around both of us, like look at the types of companies that fall within that catchment area. It's amazing, really. Yeah.
Oh, and there's ones which I, you sometimes don't know about, and you find them and think, "Wow, what you're doing is so cool."
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, we talked about this training engineers, taking new ideas on board. That's the absorption latency stuff. We talked about
Yeah.
the, the engineering superego, still in the last episode. Today, you wanted to talk about flattening the curve. You wanted to last time, to be fair, and I cut you off. But
Yeah.
today, we're going to talk about flattening the curve. What does that mean? Go on, tell us what you mean.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that, and for anybody that's interested, there's a little video of me, and it's about 4.5 minutes that will actually show you this visually. But really, when we talk about flattening the curve, what we're talking about is the normal distribution curve. If you visualize in your head, plot out a simple graph, like on the x-axis, you've got um, spread of revenue with low at the left side and high at the right. Yeah, on the x-axis. On the y-axis, you've just got clients. And if you plot that out, and in my experience for engineering and manufacturing businesses, anywhere between about 300K right up to about 10 million, generally the trend is the same. You will see it just goes up and it forms a bell curve shape. Yeah. And this is like none of this is rocket science, none of it's new. It's only really when you flip that curve and redraw that curve on underneath and you slightly change what's on those axes plots. So again, on the y-axis, keep number of clients there, but on the x-axis, instead of having revenue spread low to high, actually put in number of clients by spend and make it a bar chart this time. Yeah, and what you'll find is like I've done a post actually on LinkedIn earlier today about this. It's just up on the other screen, so I'll read it out. It's quite handy. So you have a customer base of about 38 customers as an example. By drawing that second curve out underneath, what you'll find is 80%, anywhere between 60 to 80% of your revenue comes from about 5 to 10% of the clients. So if you've 38 clients in the books, three of them are given 80% of your revenue, or three could be given as high as 80% of your revenue. So the question is, and this is the $1 million question, what happens if you lose one of them? Like, and
So,
I actually don't know the answer to that, but what my philosophy is about is it effectively in a friendly, loving way, antagonizing you to actually have that thought and think about what happens if you were to lose one.
okay, you be bad cop, I'll be good cop, and say, what would happen if you found another customer that had the same profile as one of those three? Similar effect, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But no, absolutely. I mean, I mean, Pareto's 80/20, isn't it? So you're saying it's kind of Pareto, but stretched to its very limits in that it's 10% as opposed
yeah.
to the sort of 80% from E20. Okay.
So
Um,
So you're right there. It's Pareto principle all over. Here's the distinction that I've picked up, Fred. So as I mentioned earlier, businesses between about 300K right up to 10 million. What you'll find is the ones that are carrying the biggest amount of risk with this spread are down here at the 300K mark. Now, this is your typical somebody who's been in engineering for 15, 20, 25 years, has got really, really good, and has been naturally encouraged to go out and start their own business. Their first couple of clients end up being people that they used to be employed by. Yeah. Now, what happens is that's great, and they'll have those accounts for many, many years. But it gets to the point where like things change in the industry. Like look at the regulation changes. Like COVID came along, nobody's seen that. Like so they're carrying lots of risk, lots and lots of risk. And I've always been taught it's best to start out by mitigating the risk of loss rather than encouraging the, I guess, the gain of what's new. So I guess the philosophy that I try and work off, and as I say, anybody that's interested, have a look in the video. You can increase your revenue and profitability whilst decreasing and mitigating risk at the same time. So, like, why wouldn't you do both at the same time? That makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing that goes on there, which is the kind of the evolution of the company, and that those first clients would
Yeah,
have been highly important. They'd have been right over on the right hand side of that graph.
yeah,
They're all your income. But as you grow and as you get bigger and as the projects are more, I don't know, sophisticated or just worth more, those old clients, let's call them that, they're not on the same on the same size,
yeah,
but you feel incredibly loyal to them. Yeah, they're
yeah,
the ones which saw you through the thick and thin, and you spend a load of time and effort
yeah.
servicing them and spending time with them and sorting out all their little problems. It's holding you back from dealing with the ones which would be on the right hand side, the bigger ones. Um, yeah, yeah,
Well, it's
I've seen that across different industries, and people
it's
do that. They find it incredibly hard because they
yeah.
feel disloyal to the people that have got like a very high perception of them.
Absolutely.
So,
You've got a bit of a dichotomy going on because I'll tell you what, in terms of where I've seen this, let's call it where it flares up the most, or companies that are most prone to this, is our where companies are about to cross the seven-figure turnover mark for the first time. So if you're between sort of 750, 800K up to a million, what I tend to see happening is, and by the way, the demographic of that company is the following. It's the two owners or co-founders plus a small team of maybe anywhere between 10 to 15 employees, plus a mix of some contractors. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's quite a decent team. They're paying out quite a lot, sort of in terms of operation costs. They've got headquarters, maybe test facilities, maybe a small limited capacity production outfit. So you've got all this dynamic, that demographic. They try to go and break through seven figures, but what happens is they just bounce off, right? So they'll maybe have a great year where they go from 800K up to a million. What happens a year after that? They somehow bounce back down again. It's like a resistance band. If you look at stocks and shares, like support and resistance, there seems to be a ceiling that they struggle to break through at that seven-figure mark. Yeah. And look, the reason that I believe that is the case is because all of the activity and behavior that got them to that point is fantastic. But it's what you said. It's the loyalty and attachment to those big whale customers that is actually now going to hamstring them from scaling beyond that. Because here's the dynamic that's going on in some people's heads. I can talk about this because people have shared this openly with me. So, okay, we've got one big client that gives us 50% of our revenue. That's one, by the way, one client in £1 million business is giving them 500,000 annually. So yeah, we want to scale the business. We want to go to 2, 3 million over the next couple of years. Great, I get it. I love the ambition. How are we going to do that? Okay, well, we need to plan out how we're going to acquire more new clients. What's our message and value proposition? All this stuff. So we set off to do that activity, Fred, the sales planning and execution. But what happens when we're deep in that level of strategic and executive thinking? The phone rings or their email pings up. Who is it? It's whale customer number one that brings in half the money. So what happens is, and this is at owner level, owner and director level, they will literally discard anything and go and fix that.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's going on. And look, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but if you want to scale your business, like you need to get systems in place that mean that, you know, as an owner, founder, director, when that happens, there's no anxiety going on and there's no background hum of anxiety because that's what's causing the behavior.
Interesting that you say systems and procedures and things as well. In that there's another dynamic, or can be another dynamic, which is the number of people in the team. And you're saying 10, 15. Okay, I've heard this magic number of 12. 12, when we get teams bigger than 12, strange things start to happen. I mean, if you imagine the lines of communication, they start to get very, very big. Yeah, and just teams operate differently. I've heard a guy called Daniel Priestley talk about this quite a lot. And so again, you need to think about how you all work together when you're starting to get a bigger number of people all
Yeah,
in, hopefully all with the same vision and all kind of pulling the same
absolutely.
way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
There's another thing to add on to this as well, which is, think about it like you have a team of anywhere between 10 to 15. Let's use your number 12. The business is doing about £1 million a year, has been for 3 or 4 years. It's a comfortable enough lifestyle. Everybody's getting paid, they're getting paid on time. And the owners and senior engineers people, they can afford to lease some nice cars. People are taking out the team for company well-being days. One of the problems is it's all too comfortable, so the level of pain to actually change the way they think about growth and scale, the pain isn't there to promote it. Like, what I'm trying to say is the capacity for change and commitment to change doesn't exist. And quite frankly, what it takes to inject that commitment for change, that capacity for change, is one of those big clients phoning up one day saying, by the way, we're not renewing our contract. Or, by the way, COVID has affected us, so we're only going to give you 25% of the contract that we usually give you. It's
yeah,
that sort of stuff that needs to happen for the wake up call to kick in. So I try and generate awareness of that as it's basically a risk that they're carrying. So why wouldn't you de-risk and make more money at the same time? Yeah,
yeah. Okay. And it's funny, you just made me think about something on there, which is the sort of that step change. Because sometimes it's a bit of a step. I just remember back in the day when my dad had a business, it was a builder's merchant, not an engineer.
yeah,
And I didn't really get, 16, 17-year-old Fred, why didn't you open more branches? Why didn't you get bigger? Because I don't want to.
yeah,
Well, it's too much like hard work. Now, he didn't use those words, but when I look back at it, that's exactly what we're saying. He had a brilliant lifestyle. The
yeah,
head office was 5 minutes from home. He was treasurer of the rugby club, so he could go and do all that stuff on a Monday. They'd got these other yards which could be covered. There was five altogether. Happy days. Yeah.
yeah.
Holidays, 3 weeks at a time off to Spain. That next step, he wouldn't have been able to do any of that. And he probably wouldn't have made that much more money. He just got more headaches.
You're touching on, like, these are the real emotional drivers and the real emotional pains that make people actually change behavior. You're touching on it now. So whenever I go in to talk to those businesses that are, let's say, sub 1.5 million, like, and this is, I'm not stereotyping or saying this is bad, but owner directors, they've leased themselves a Range Rover or a Merc. They've maybe got a second property where they take the family on holiday a couple of times a year. And as you say, like, it's quite a nice life. So why would they change anything? Like,
Yeah.
scaling, growing, increasing the member of staff in the team, opening another site. Yeah, it is. It's all put my current lifestyle that I like at risk.
Yeah.
So those are the real drivers. And actually, believe it or not, my strong belief is people will show a commitment and capacity to change if they think they're not going to be able to drive a Range Rover 6 months from now and they're going to have to downgrade the lease to drive a Skoda. That's the sort of stuff that you want to be tapping into when you're having conversations with these people. I say these people, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. They're lovely human beings. My job, and I'm blessed to do this job, is to just help them think and see differently so that they can act differently.
Let's we've had this conversation before. I can't remember if it was recorded or not, but anyway, let's re-record if we have. One of the great things about working with people with engineering mindset is when they do start to go for it, and you're introducing process, procedure,
Yeah,
systems, templates, frameworks, ways which have proven to work before, all over it, and stuff starts to happen. And
yeah,
that's why one of the reasons, apart from my very first job being in this world as well, is that we see results, which is great. It's great for all of us, So
yeah.
yeah, these people, I know we're using very strange language, but because it's great, it's very
Our
fulfilling. It's
people,
very
yeah,
fulfilling
yeah.
for all of us. Our people, we always say our
Our people,
people,
yeah.
yeah,
You should
our
say
people.
our
That'd be better.
people. Yeah, you should
Why
say
are we not?
there are
These
people.
people. Sounds like
Yeah,
we're aliens.
yeah. You're absolutely right, because once they buy into that, they become unstoppable. Like I said at the top of the podcast, like massive levels of discipline, massive levels of consistency. Like, very rarely do they become overwhelmed by huge amounts of new information and data. So once they've dialed into and bought into the change, yeah, they're unstoppable. So it's all about getting them that quick win, getting them to be able to cross the bridge of trust that yeah, there's some loudmouth Northern Irish idiots come in here and told us to do things differently. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but we need to see a result pretty quickly. And that's I know I'm up against that every time, and that's sort of what I get my kick from because there's so many things that you can offer to them as a low-hanging fruit and a really easy win. And then as you say, it's like they're off to the races once they're bought into it.
Yeah. That's what else you got? What else you got? What else you got? Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly that. What
But
else?
you've done the job. I mean, yeah, the loudmouth Northern Irish guy with engineer job on his CV. Now, I've had a good 24 years of sales training on my CV for people to have a look and go, yeah, perhaps some of this stuff actually works.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But uh, but it does, and I'd say getting those quick wins is absolutely key.
Yeah.
Um, cool. So that was the thing you want to talk about, flattening the curve, but flattening the curve.
Yeah.
Flattening the curve? Have I just
Flattening.
invented have I invented a new concept here? Flattening the curve. Um, which I mean, so basically that's related to pipeline then, isn't it? It's the pipeline science that you talk about and kind of getting the right opportunities
Yeah,
in,
absolutely.
right research, right conversations, right
Yeah.
solutions, and doing that stuff in the right order. Because I think people get this in the wrong order sometimes because of what
Yeah.
they think sales is rather than what it actually is. Again, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so you mentioned pipeline science there. That's my gig. That's effectively what I like implant and help them sort of integrate into their day-to-day, week-to-week jobs. So the curve bit is really just like that's the base of the entire philosophy that I work on. So that positions me effectively. And then anything that comes after that feeds into pipeline science, pipeline management, pipeline gearing. Like there's all these iterative things and all of these little levers and switches you can pull. But really what it boils down to is like if you manage your pipeline correctly in an engineering and manufacturing company weekly and you gear it properly, and by gearing a pipeline, what I mean is you have the right type of opportunity in the pipeline at the right point in the correct ratio to other opportunities. Then if you just keep monitoring that and effectively just working away, chipping away in that weekly, you'll be absolutely fine. So just to give you an example of what I mean by that, Fred, so like let's use really easy numbers. So you've got a deal or an opportunity in the pipeline that's worth £1 million. It's going to take 6 months, possibly 6 months to close. That's typically the norm for bigger type deals in the industry that I'm used to working in. So of course, you want that in your pipeline, but you don't want the business cash flow to be doing this feast and famine. So what it means is for every one of those £1 million deals or opportunities you got in there, you've effectively got to have maybe 5 to 6 other smaller ones that are anywhere between maybe 50 to 100K. Think of it like let's use an ocean-based animal analogy. For every whale, you probably need 5 or 6 dolphins. That's effectively what we're saying. And what that means is, like, in my opinion, you're never going to get rid of this sine wave type activity around cash flow. But what you do is you dampen it down. Now, as you dampen it down, that then gives you confidence to change other things in your business. And what you can do is you can then start to level up, scale up in a predictable, managed way where there's, let's say, the least amount of anxiety around the business. Because here's the thing, like, and I've done another post about this a few weeks ago. When you're at the top of that curve here, like you're thinking to yourself, bloody hell, life is good. I'm going to book myself another 3 week skiing holiday next year with family. And it's brilliant. Like it doesn't get any better. 3 months later, if you've not done the pipeline science bit, you could easily find yourself down here. And it's like, it's FML. It's like, I'm going to have to cancel the holiday. How am I going to tell the missus that we're not going on this holiday? And we're maybe going to have to take the kids to Butlins instead or something. I'm being a little bit disrespectful to Butlins there, no offense. But that's just the thing you're dealing with. So, like, think about yes, this is representing cash flow, but it's also representing the emotional state of the owner and leadership team in that business.
Yeah. And when you're on the bottom of the curve and you start panicking and the chimp brain kicks in and you can't think straight. And then that's a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
Been there, been
Yeah.
there. Where
Oh,
you're
I've
like you're
been
trying to
there.
get your head straight, but
Yeah.
you can't think. It's like your head's full of cotton wool, and you're trying to make sense of it. You know it's not right. You know the things to do,
Yeah.
but you can't. It's just it's
Been
it's
there,
it's
yeah.
a tough thing.
Been there, got the t-shirt as well, and I know what
Yeah,
it's like. And I guess maybe we segue into, our people, how they ended up in a position or a role
yeah,
where they're responsible for sales. I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I think it's fascinating to me because I've seen this trend play out time and time again over the last 10 years. And it doesn't seem to be deviating or changing, in my opinion. And here's what the trend looks like. So you've got Joe Bloggs, graduates in mechanical engineering from a reputable UK engineering university, and gets a graduate position at a Mark OEM or a tier one or a very reputable engineering business. Works his way up through the ranks over the next 10 to 15 years in that business, like delivers some really, really top end projects and jobs, like, working, maybe develops a powertrain or an engine for a hypercar that's worth maybe 50, 60, 100 million. And they've done this multiple times, yeah, over the last maybe 2 decades. At this point, they then suddenly find themselves shoehorned or ushered into a role where they have to do sales for, say, business. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm thinking to myself, and maybe you do as well, how's this ended up happening? Because not only has that individual never had sales training, but they never wanted to be in a position where they had to do sales in the first place. They wanted to be an engineer and do what they were great at. So they're now in a position where they're probably early to mid to maybe late 40s ish. That's how the way I see it playing out. And there's this new level of pressure, anxiety, and ultimately stress in their life now because they're responsible for making sure all of these other people in the team that report to them are going to get paid, what the forecast looks like for, the business, the account, all that sort of stuff. Um, and I see this playing out time and time again. And I guess like I like to get involved and try and help those types of people by, helping them see that there is a different way to tackle sales. It's not just what you've seen on a Grant Cardone YouTube video or something like
yeah.
that, because it's not the way to do it. There's a
Y-
completely different way for engineers to sell. They should sell the way it's almost as if they invented sales. That's the way they should do it.
Yeah, because they've got the ingredients. I think what's happened from what I've seen is that it's people who are good engineers, and then because they're good at fixing stuff, solving problems, they'll sometimes get put out in front of customers. And of course, what they do, the customer loves because it fixes the problem.
Yeah,
So they get the reputation of being good in front of customers. Now, there's probably an element of they actually are good with people anyway. So they've got engineering skills, good with people skills.
yeah, yeah,
They're with a salesperson, so they're doing what they do and what they do well. And then there's this reputation gets given to them,
yeah,
quite, deservedly, as in, yeah, they're great. Okay, give them the full-time sales job.
yeah,
Now they're off on their own. And they've not got the person who's understood the sales process and the steps and the things that you're doing to get to that position, and then what you're going to do after that, and
yeah,
some of the things to keep the whole thing moving forward. And it's like, well, this is the stuff that I did really well, so I just do more of that. That is important, but it's not the be all and end all. There's a whole load of other stuff.
yeah.
Never been told what that is.
Exactly. And stack on top of that then, Fred. So I had a conversation this morning with a top engineer. Is running his own business and he's doing amazing things. And he was vulnerable enough to confide in me that in order for him to take a serious commercial decision about growing his business, he had to work through self-prescribed gating criteria or factors in his own head. And what those factors looked like was really simple. I need to be really confident and clear that I can demonstrate competency to this end client that we're working with at the minute. And I was like, okay, but help me understand from where you are now, knowing what you've done in your career, you are a 10 out of 10 in terms of confidence that you can do this. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So it's like, help me understand the thinking that's going on. He's like, well, in terms of the confidence that I have that they know I'm competent. I'm only a 4 out of 10 until I become happy and comfortable effectively that I've got up to an 8 or a 9. I won't take that decision. I won't make that investment. I won't do that action. So you've got then the self-prescribed criteria that they must tick off in their own minds. And remember, the engineering mindset is also very compliance based. So if there is a fixation or a need to tick a box before something can happen, that thing will definitely not happen until that box is ticked.
But what a place to come from. Having that understanding of this is how decisions are made by our customers, because I essentially am one of our customers,
Yeah,
and that's what they're going through. So we need to do these things to help them on that journey, as opposed to someone who's not from that world,
yeah,
who is a, let's say, a pure salesperson who's like, learn some products and off you go. And let me just tell you about the product and all the company history and how ace we are and just keep
yeah,
talking at you. And it's like, right, you are moving me not one jot along that line
yeah.
compared to the person that's over analyzing it and going, I've really got to get that bit right, that bit right, that bit right for the customer. That's where modern selling's at. So they're in a strong position once we just channel it.
Absolutely. And look, here's the biggest compliment I could give our people is they're only a few tweaks and modifications away from being superstars. Like literally they are like they're 5, 10, 15% at most away from being excellent. So you're starting with really like raw untapped potential and talent. It's not like you're starting at 5% and you have to work this person up to 60, 70, 80. The raw material is also there. There's one thing as well I wanted to talk about very quickly before we finish, which is, and this may, like, not may, this is definitely going to rub some people up the wrong way, but I have to say it because I truly believe it's true. And again, talking about trends and patterns that have not changed over the last decade, somebody sent me on LinkedIn the other day, oh, we're looking for some help with business development and sales. The company in question is open to contractors and consultants. Would you be interested? And I was like, well, yeah, send over, tell me what it looks like. The first line, the first prerequisite for this role is must have a considerably big black book of contacts, right? And what that tells me is the belief is that they think selling is based on how many people you have in your network, how many email addresses and phone numbers you have. And back to the age-old saying in the industry, it's all based on relationships. Yeah. Now I'm calling BS on that because it's not, because the modern way of engineering sales is about getting clear, laser focused clarity on the problem that you solve, combining that with credibility chips where you've done it before. So it's repeat selling. It's not an R&D project. You can show that you've done it multiple times for reputable businesses. Then add on top of that relevancy and an urgency from a timeline perspective, i.e., a regulation change, i.e., a new development project. And then put on top of that a system or a set of processes to do sales. You don't need a black book because all you really need, Fred, is you need your phone, an app like LinkedIn, and somewhere where you can actually start talking and putting a message out about a problem that we've solved through this great piece of kit or product that we've made. So yeah, I
Yeah.
have to touch on that because yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. People should not being screened and assessed in interviews for business development and engineering based on a black book. It's 2 decades out of date.
It, it is that whole hail fellow well met type thing.
Yeah,
I'm not into that. The other one I rant about is yeah, problem. It's problem, not product. If it focus on the problem, that's where it's at now, and it's only going to go more that way. And knowing
yeah,
how to collaborate with people to solve the problem, that's if people get their heads around that, which again ain't difficult. We've done the thinking around, haven't we? Yeah,
yeah,
they will be successful, absolutely will, because they can bring all those other skills which are already in place,
yeah.
including a bit of experience, including a bit of wisdom. That's important as well. It's there, we can make a difference. So
And the other thing is, in terms of the problem, just quickly, the problem can be tiered or layered. So you've got the logical view of the problem, the emotional view of the problem, and then the reputational view of the problem. Yeah. So
Yeah.
to give an example, if you're an MD of an engineering business that whose sales has been flatlining or going down over the last couple of years, the logical problem is I need to fix my mediocre underperforming sales team. Okay, that's obvious. The emotional problem is if I don't fix this problem, I'm not going to be able to take my family away on this massive holiday that I've promised them, or I'm not going to be able to pay off my mortgage early, which I promised my wife and kids I would do, so I could retire early. And then the reputational problem is, well, I'm the leader of this business. If I can't fix this problem, because remember, I'm an engineer and that's what we do, we fix problems. If I can't fix this problem, my reputation, my credibility is on the line. So the problem is that you've got these tiers or layers going on as well. And the one that I like to touch into is the reputational one. Because that's if anybody's missed the last episode, go and listen back to Engineering Superego.
Right back there. What a brilliant way to start to round this episode off by plugging the one before. Okay, and then that one will say, "Come and listen to this," and you'll get caught in a loop of stuff.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, I think if you listen to these a couple of times, there's a lot of stuff you've covered, Mark. You've absolutely shared a ton. So, where do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, great question. So, best place to get in touch with me is LinkedIn. That's where I like to hang out and post almost every day when I can make that happen and annoy some people and excite others. So yeah, just look me up, Mark Rathore on LinkedIn. Engineering collaborations, the natural strategic way for engineers and manufacturers to deliver lasting value for their customers. That's my LinkedIn handle. Everything you need is on there. Links to the videos that we mentioned earlier in there as well. Contact, email, phone number, all of the usuals.
Brilliant. We'll pop that into the show notes. And if you do contact Mark off the back of this, let him know that you were listening to it, and which bit had really piqued your interest. But once again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much with us.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah, I'm sure we'll have many more of these conversations, and they might even make their way onto a part three. Who knows?
I think I've already got a couple of questions lined up.
Thank you for listening to the Sale Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the collaborative selling scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.